How's it going, everyone? I'm Northstar. Welcome to the Gigantic discussion. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit about Gigantic's future, whether it'll succeed or not, and everything new that's coming to Gigantic and what we think about it. To help me talk about it, I've brought in two very, very prominent members of the community who I'm sure all of you know. If you don't mind, please introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'll go first. Hi, I'm FailcoPunch. You might have seen me streaming on Twitch or on YouTube, being generally terrible at Gigantic.
And I'm SoFech, a community member. I've done a lot with Gigantic, and I'm in a weird spot with this game, but I'm really happy to see it coming back.
That's great. So as far as I know, Failco, you were would you call it pro player or would you just call it competitive enjoyer?
Oh, I would say competitive enjoyer. I don't think any of us can actually claim we were pro because we never had like sponsorships and there wasn't even like a real competitive mode. But I enjoyed scrimming with the other tryhards back in the day. Yeah, it was fun.
And then SoFech, you got a job out of making content for Gigantic, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have a background in game design, and so I was looking to get my foot in the door. But basically, I was just making meme videos, and Motiga liked them enough that they had an opening for a community manager, and they wanted to bring me on. And that's kind of where the history begins.
That sounds like a
It's
dream.
insane.
Yeah, it sounds incredible.
Yeah, it was insane. Yes, a crazy dream.
Honestly, if you want to know even deeper, crazier tidbit than that, I also applied for the same job as SoFech, and they chose SoFech, which is great because thank God. Can you imagine me doing that? No.
Damn, that's crazy.
It's amazing.
It's just
Well,
imagine,
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I know a lot of people applied for that position, and they were I don't know. It's a complicated situation, and there was no right choice for Motiga, so it really put a lot of burden on them because, like, who knows what would have happened with the game if they got a different community manager. But I don't think that would have saved it, but I mean, I don't know. If it was somebody else, would they have pushed as hard as I did later on? What would the content have been like? You know, like, things would have been really different for a Gigantic scene. So who knows? But yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You did an amazing job. Everybody, round of applause for SoFech.
Well, to be fair, one of the only reasons I ever found Gigantic was from one of the videos SoFech made on the Go Gigantic channel. So if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here doing this.
Well, damn, thank you.
Wow! Oh my gosh.
That's great.
So as well, Failco, how did you like discover Gigantic? Because I feel like a lot of people heard more about this game after it died than when it was like a live service game.
Yeah, that's wild. I actually discovered it at one of the conventions in Boston. So PAX East was where I saw it, and it caught my eye immediately. I mean, they had gigantic banners everywhere, and I was like, where do I play this video game? And so I got the chance to play it. It was weird. We were like sequestered into like a secret room, and we got to like play. I played Charnock, and I was like, I need to like play this all the time. How do I get in? And that's actually where I met another community member, Schmuglidorf. He was like my coach, yelling at me to do better. It was great. So after that, like, you know, we had like beta sign up codes and everything, and we were in TeamSpeak. Oh my God, TeamSpeak forever ago. And that's how I got into the beta, and I was obsessed with it ever since. But so thank you, PAX East.
Bro, like, I as I said, I do find it crazy that I feel like a lot of people learnt about this game because of the fans begging for it to come back for all these years, and like the amount of videos, because it left like a big impression on a lot of people. Like, I would say, like, I'm biased because I've been playing it in private servers for like 2.5 years. Like, the game I have the most hours in, it's either Gigantic or Overwatch, and I'm not proud of the Overwatch ones, I'm gonna be honest. Like,
I feel it.
like, I'll play Overwatch for like 2 weeks straight as like a main game and then not touch it for a month. Whereas
Mhm.
in Gigantic, somehow it's kept my retention as like my main game for all these 2 years. Like the only times I've taken breaks would be like for exams, which for me is really, really unusual.
That's
Wow.
rad.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel it.
You see a lot of that too, where people just get so excited about the memory of this game and the potential of being able to play it. And it's not just the nostalgia of the fun times that we had, but it's really the connection that you build with the characters in the world.
Oh, I agree. Like the heroes are like iconic, and I suppose that also goes to like Motiga's team was like high level developer, like the best of the best on this indie team. It's like incredible the stuff they put out, but also as well, I feel like that may be attributed to a lot of the bugs that are in the game because I'm not sure how many programmers they had, but I know a lot of Motiga were artists first and foremost, and you can see that in the game.
Yeah, the bugs. And that's also, I think, a product of Unreal 3. And also, well, it's a storied history where they were developing for PC and then they went with Microsoft and then they had to switch to UWP. And so things happened there and that caused a lot of issues and setbacks. And then you just get tech debt up the ass.
Yeah, and they had, Finney, who was one of the creators of like StarCraft. He was like worked on that, and so he had a lot of ideas about how wanted the game to go, and it changed a lot. But you know what? Back to the thing about artists. I mean, there's some of the best artists in the industry. I mean, they're incredible. Everything that they made was so unique and cool, and I still think it's one of the coolest art styles of any game, no matter what, that I've ever seen. I mean, look at the animations too. Like, there's so much care in there. Like Zenobia's tentacles, like that's insane. We're
what am-
so lucky we got that. Oh my goodness.
what amazes me as well is that for the playtest, if people don't know, in October they had like a quote unquote throwback playtest, which everyone saw through. That's you do not have a throwback playtest and you add like 50 new features. Like, come on. But it amazed me that like the animations held up so well years after. Like some of the animations are from 2015 on like alpha builds I've seen. So you could just see the level of art and like even dedication that the people put in to this game is insane to me.
True. It really has sort of a timeless look to it. It just like captures the aesthetic perfectly. And even though it's on Unreal 3, it still looks like a modern game. It looks like it could be developed today.
Yeah. Mention the Unreal 3 a lot.
Yeah, that's certainly an issue with the game, but yeah, I don't know. We'll get to that later.
Oh yeah, well, I want to touch on now a lot of the reasons why I feel like I want to touch and ask you guys why you think Gigantic, first of all, had a downfall in its success, but also why you think it's now coming back. Like, what reason do you think people have seen a reason to bring the game back?
I would say SoFech probably has like the answer that everybody's looking for there. So I don't know. SoFech, I feel like you need to start this conversation.
Sure. I mean, I can ramble on about this for days. So just stop me or interject if you have any comments. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different reasons why Gigantic didn't succeed the first time. But I think the primary ones are just it hit the market too late. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, but it just sucks. Like I made a whole graph and I looked at the timeline. And by the time Gigantic was releasing in 1.0 on Steam and Arc, well, Arc first and then Steam, like the battle royale genre was already emerging, and so it was past the era of MOBAs and then past the era of hero shooters, and then it was getting into battle royales, and that just is unfortunate because Gigantic was announced in like 2014 or something, I think is when I saw the first video for it, and then it didn't actually fully hit 1.0 until 2017, and by that time Overwatch had already been out for a year. There was like Paladins had been out for some time and all these other games, and then PUBG hit the market, and that was like 6 or 7 months before Gigantic came out, and then Fortnite Battle Royale had released like the same month or maybe a month later or something, and so it was just too late by that time, which really sucks because they were already, and it goes into other things too, like where the communities will latch onto a game and it's hard to get them out of that. They're already invested emotionally, financially. They already have friends in those games like Overwatch and Paladins. So it's hard to get them over to something else. But of course, there's just like a laundry list of other things like the 6 gigabytes of RAM. The character designs don't appeal to certain audiences. The not being on PlayStation and just the false starts over and over. The game launched like 4 or 5 times. And then the unfortunate situation with releasing on Arc a month early, because then that kind of tainted people's perception, because then you get press and media saying like, oh, the game's available on PC, but it's only Arc. And then you don't really get the same pickup on Steam because it's already technically launched. And just like all these other awful things that happened to that poor game.
Yeah, I mean, the game mode was experimented on for a long, long time until we have what we have now. There were a lot of interesting variations that I got to see, which was cool, but it's hard when you're trying to, uh, you promised a game come out a certain time, you have to pay the people that make the game, and then you eventually run out of money and time, right? So yeah, I agree about like the window. They kind of missed it a little bit, but and then everybody was like, Overwatch, and then Overwatch just proved ultimately to be more of a baby game. It's a game for babies. It's easy. It's easy to pick up. A character does one thing. That's it. They do one thing, and you could switch if you don't like it. Cool. Matches are fast-ish, and it's really easy to understand where to go. There's like all this crazy UI, Blizzard money, right? Telling you where to go. Gigantic, so much more complicated. Not only do you have to learn what a character does from 1 to 10, you have to know all of the counters, all of the things, and it's kind of confusing to understand what to do. And the maps were humongous. It's kind of hard to know right off the bat, and Gigantic did not release with many like guidelines to help you understand. So I feel like people had to just rely on what was available, and maybe there wasn't that much available. So it was hard to get people. I had many friends. I was like, play this game. They'd be like, no, it looks too hard. And I'm like, what? You play League of Legends, right? Like, it's not harder than that. But yeah, so very complicated game. Hard to understand for people, I guess. Not like baby Overwatch.
That is a good point, though. I think Failco brings up a lot of good topics, and the like the conversation thread about the game being inaccessible and being too hard for new players to get into, I think is mostly just it comes down to communicating the systems and things to people. But yeah, in like a standard MOBA, there are creeps that run down the lane and you can just follow them if you don't know where to go. In like a hero shooter, that the maps are kind of just hallways and corridors, and yeah, there's a couple other paths, but if you just walk forward, you'll end up in the right spot. And that's really not the case in Gigantic. If you walk forward, you're going to end up in some back alley, uh, you, like some
Gonna get
creepy place, and
stabbed by
then
Trip.
yeah, exactly, Trip is going to pop out of nowhere and just start stabbing you in the ass. And like there's these giant guardians, and so if you run into the wrong territory, then you're going to start getting hit, and you can fall off the map and things of that nature. So it doesn't really do a great job of communicating where you should go and what you should do next.
Which is funny because you have giant monster that's literally like going across the map to the enemy monster, but it's actually while playing I've lost track. I've been like, "Oh, I'm too busy like dealing with them and that and like trying to jump here. Oh, they're over there now. Okay, go there. Oh, the time's up. What what now? What do I do?" Okay, and just being like unsure of what to do and then dying a lot because there's so many new systems that Gigantic introduced, like stamina and which was crazy. But I can't believe it. But then again, I can, having played it and being very confused many times of what's happening in the game. Um, so yeah, there's so many reasons, right? Oh my goodness.
Well,
But there's
from
also
oh, sorry, go
just as
ahead.
many reasons to love the game, right? Like we're talking about the bad things right now, but all of those things are also good things because they're fun and you grow to learn these systems, and then you interact with them, and then you can teach other people those things, and it's fun to talk about them, the best way to go about doing this, interacting with all these things. And so I think it sucks maybe at first, and looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, but now we've got a second chance at the game, and going into it with a fresh perspective and having been away from it for a long time, I think it just makes it all the more special.
Yeah, I agree. Well, from what I can say with like, first of all, SoFech touched on people being during that time hero shooters were sort of the big thing, and then battle royales were just coming out. I was one of those people who one of my friends asked me to play it, and I just said no, because I was I was at that age where like I was like Fortnite was the thing. Like I was like I'm gonna be like the best, like, which obviously no, it didn't happen. But I I was one of those people who just would not switch because I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like the art style at that time. I thought it was cheesy. I thought it was uninspired, to be honest. But I've changed now, and as well as like it being difficult, like it is hard. Gigantic is a hard game, especially Clash, which is one thing I want to talk about. Is like competitive viability. Clash is a hard game mode, and from playing in private servers, like you get both sides of the spectrum. You get people who are fresh into the game, no clue what they're doing. You have to. I've seen new players shoot at the Guardian at the start of the match. Like, I've seen people put the most random creatures in the most random spots. Like you have no idea. But the game systems, from what I've seen in the beta recently, they've improved a lot of that. Everything's a lot more vivid. You can understand a lot more of the game, and as well, the game is so good at allowing people who are talented at games to be good at Gigantic, because there's so much, even with it being an Unreal Engine 3, that opens doors for like tech to be discovered on characters. We're in the private server, we're still discovering new tech till this day, 5 years after being shut down, which amazes me.
Jeez.
Indeed. Yep. Very deep. There's a lot of player expression in that game.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the best things about it. That's so fun. It's like you can really make your character do what you want it to do, and then you every fight feels kind of like a duel because you both have stamina. You could both iframe and dodge things that other games you maybe couldn't do it in the same way. And the verticality in Gigantic, I mean, for me, that was one of the draws. I haven't played a game where I could literally fly across the map or feel like I can climb things while fighting people. And that's pretty unique, I'd say.
Well, I want to now touch on. I want to go back to October of 2023. So, out of nowhere, people start getting emails from Gearbox saying there's a throwback event. Gigantic's coming back for a weekend, and then people are suspecting they're testing the waters for a potential re-release. So, did you guys get into the first playtest? Is what I want to know first.
I did.
I didn't get an email, but I got in. That didn't stop me.
I know
Yeah, I've
SoFech's
been
got
getting
in.
all the emails.
I know
Yeah.
SoFech's got him because someone in the someone I talked to in the private server sent me a screenshot of them killing you in the kill feed.
Oh, great.
Oh my
That's funny.
gosh.
So yeah, I feel like the first playtest they did was I was really surprised just because it was literally out of nowhere. Like, because I remember in 2022, SoFech came to the private server and did like a round table where there was like hundreds of people just giving feedback on Gigantic. So, am I right in assuming that that was for a potential re-release pitch to Gearbox?
Yeah, I did a lot of those.
I
So
mean,
that
I
one,
might have known about this a little bit.
yeah. Yeah. I've talked with Failco about this many times, and there's like I just tried so many times over the years to garner interest in this game. And I don't know, like it's a weird topic for me. I don't want to toot my own horn, and I've been seeing a lot of people come to me and be like, "Oh, thank you, you saved the game." And I don't want to take full credit for it because it's not just me. It's not just me. I did not add all the new characters. I didn't re-release. I'm not spinning up servers, none of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I've been putting together decks and presentations and stuff, and I think that roundtable was really the push that got shit in motion. because I was able to show how many people were there and also like really get a good idea of what the players thought of the game, especially since a lot of private server people have been playing it still.
Hmm.
And like I was going into all these back rooms and talking with people individually, and I was even going to like the YouTube comments and seeing people posting still like, you know, years later. And even on the Steam reviews for a game that isn't even listed on Steam anymore, people were still leaving positive reviews. And so I was able to use all of that as ammo and be able to make a really compelling case to finally get something happening for it.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God. From like the moment it died, I remember SoFech being like, I'm working on this thing. Like, I remember seeing it once and being like, oh my God, this man cares so much about this game. And it's really amazing. I know as soon as Gigantic died, I literally like had to leave. I was like, nope, get me out of every Discord. I need to like, because I was like so upset, but this man fought through that. And I do really think SoFetch is why the game is back. So everybody uh, pay press F to pay respects.
Well, thank you.
So wait, were you pitching the game like every like ever since it died, like from 2018 onwards? Were you just always persistent with that, or did you like stop for a while and then just get, hey, I have an idea?
Yeah, I was very persistent. I did it at least 2 times a year. More than that, actually. I was like constantly talking with people about it too and constantly bringing it up. And I was like internally running playtests during lunch, and I was trying to get people together during lunch hours, you know, taking them away from work and from their friends and family and stuff and being like, it's gigantic time, let's go. And so after the game had shut down even. But yeah, actually before it had shut down, I was putting together decks and presentations on how I thought we could save the game and turn it into something uh, that would still live and be profitable. Like after Motiga got fired basically and they had like the skeleton crew. I was at Perfect World at the time, and so I was very fortunate to be picked up by Perfect World as Motiga was being let go. So yeah, you know, that's a very sensitive spot for me because I got to see all my friends, you know, going by the wayside and just being scattered to the wind, and I'm still working on this game. And so I felt like it was my responsibility to continue pushing for this and at least have, you know, put something out there. I didn't want all their efforts to go to waste. So yeah, actually I had a lot of topics and discussions on what to do with the upcoming game mode, which was called Brawl at the time, and how to make it more accessible for like new players. And I had a lot of data and all these charts and graphs and everything. And so then I just had this foundation and I continued building upon it over the years. And so the decks changed and my presentation changed and my attitude changed and, you know, the way I approached it. And I guess something worked.
I find it really interesting that after the playtest in October, I saw a bunch of like tweets and threads on Reddit from ex Motigan saying that if they got the chance to ever work on Gigantic again, they would take it like that. So that just really that gave me hope that like because a lot of the changes I'll get onto, but a lot of the changes in the most recent build I think are a bit questionable. For like I look at stuff and I'm like, Motiga wouldn't have put that in, which obviously we have to accept because it's not Motiga anymore.
I agree.
But yeah, I also want to talk about the re-release because I don't know if you guys are in the official Go Gigantic Discord server, but
I think
for
so. Am I?
I
I don't
think I
know.
think I've seen you in there. I'm not sure about SoFets though, but for about a week before the announcement trailer for the release date on April 9th, the mods in there were just taking the piss out of everyone. Like I mean, they were hinting stuff left, right, and center. Like they were like, and anytime someone would mention Gigantic, they put the little eye sticker, or they'd put like a confused emoji. Like they were just trolling everyone, and it was so annoying. We were all like, see if there isn't something happening soon. Everyone's gonna leave this Discord. They cannot be doing this to people. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the re-release. Like, did you guys expect it to be so soon? Because I think it's really, really soon for the state of the game that I saw the playtest in. I think there's still a lot of changes they need to make, and I'm worried that it might be too soon to launch it?
Well, how do I put this? um, Legally, I had no idea this was coming at this time, but I would have expected it to be about this time, considering that there was a playtest in October. Fiscal year ends in March, so I figured it would be around, if you're going to release a game, it would be around this time. It does seem a little late, to be honest, but also from the breadth of the game and what is listed in the product description, I think this is exactly what they were looking to do with the game.
Damn. I I I I'm really one of the changes I really like about the game, which I think definitely hindered it on the first time around, is the limited crossplay it had. Because as far as I know, Steam and Arc had crossplay, which as well, Gigantic was one of the first games to have crossplay in it, as far as I know. Um, or at least talk about it. And then Microsoft and Xbox had crossplay with them, but now we're gonna have Steam, Arc, Xbox, and PlayStation into it now, which
Finally.
I know.
Yeah, that's big.
That's gigantic, even. Sorry,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so the original release only had crossplay between a universal Windows platform, Windows 10 at the time,
Yeah.
and the Xbox consoles. Now that's changed a lot, and the Xbox infrastructure is so much better for that now because you have like Game Pass, and so you have PC Game Pass that can play with Xbox players. And so what Gigantic had was like the early version in its infancy of what we have now for the Xbox architecture.
It's like
And also,
proto.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they were paving the way for that stuff. I remember them talking a lot about not having design documents to be able to figure these things out. And then they would go to Microsoft and be like, "How do we do this?" And they're like, "We don't know." So
Oh my
that,
god.
sets development back a lot in that regard. But yeah, like crossplay is still something that is very expensive to implement, and it's super hard because you have to get sign off from all the different platform holders. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. And so just like a peek behind the curtain in the game industry is that you have to do specific things for each platform and you have to appeal to them, especially for free to play games with monetization. It has to be different on every platform. They all have their funny money, fake currency. They all want exclusives. You have to be able to, convert your currency or like do direct payments through their platforms and just like all sorts of wonky things. And so free to play games have a more immense hurdle in getting crossplay with multiple platforms than a purchase game does. And so I think, kind of segueing into that, I think that's why the game is the purchase model that it is. But also that was not possible back in 2017, and it is finally available now.
Yay! And it wasn't confusing at all to use. I definitely understood how to get an invite and accept my party stuff very easily. I'm just kidding. I was really difficult. I figured it out eventually. Just saying. So, okay, can I just say really quickly, the UX in Gigantic currently really not good. There's a lot of stuff where I'm confused on how to like do my emote wheel. There's confusing buttons and commands telling me to do a thing. There's like weird icons that appear that don't mean anything. There's a lot I'm sure there's stuff that is like an easy first pass will get rid of it, but it's definitely interesting going from like what I know from old Gigantic to new team coming in with their own like process and everything. And yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of the stuff, like the builder and things like that, but it's cool we have that. Never had that before, had to go outside the game for that. So it's kind of neat. It feels like everything you need is kind of there for you, which is like, wow, it does feel more complete in a way, but there's a lot of very confusing things going on, especially with inviting, which I feel like should be the easiest thing to do.
oh yeah,
If you get a crossplay invite, check your party, because apparently that's where they go, as I found out randomly.
I spent
Yeah,
about
Miss UI UX professional here.
Oh, there's so many things, but it's okay. We're not going to get into it, maybe. I don't know. I don't want them to get mad at me yet. We'll see.
No, it's okay. It's a purchase title now. They can't ban you like that. So yeah, but to Daniel's point, I think we all saw the problems with the UI and just like party interface and stuff on the ARC play tests. It was rough. It
It
wasn't
was
just
so
like
bad.
yeah, like the servers were hanging, and I'm sure they were having a lot of tech issues there too. But yeah, it just kind of exposed a lot of the problems that are like legacy holdovers from the game that we're still going to have to deal with in the future. But then, like we were talking about before, going back to it, we're going to deal with that because we want the game. And so it sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't communicate certain aspects very well to you, but it's all there. And hopefully it functions well. And, we'll jump over those hurdles to get the game.
Yeah,
Well,
I definitely agree.
in the UI, there's a lot of issues, obviously, with like the party menu not being very clear on how you get invites and stuff. Obviously there was a massive UI overhaul with like everything, and personally for me, after playing on in the private servers for years, the new upgrade menu in game, I hate it so much. I think the old one was so much better.
Dude,
Well,
you're going to fucking send me down a whirlwind here. So that was. Do you want me to talk dev stuff, or are we just like?
I don't mind.
I
Go
don't know.
ahead.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
okay.
Can we hear it? I want to hear the salt. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Okay. The salt is rising. I'm still getting caught up on my tea. The caffeine hasn't hit. I'm feeling it, but it's okay. We're going up. So, okay. There are a lot of changes from this that just seem like steps backwards. They feel like they're reverting things in the game and making it worse. This is abstraction. They're the new developers on the game on Gigantic Rampage Edition.
Mhm.
So when we were going over this process, they just randomly removed all of the upgrade menus, and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? Why are they doing this? And they condensed it and they made it all black, so it wasn't transparent background anymore, and it just took up so much of the screen, and then it removed a lot of information too. So the old upgrade UI, I mean, you can probably go on the private server and see some of that stuff, but it gave you a lot of text, but it was still pretty concise. It said upgrades your LMB to do 10% more damage plus burn or something like that, right? And so you could just look at the keywords which are highlighted and it's no problem. But then what they've done now is so bunk where it's like the information that you get that's on the upgrade UI is just like more damage and it doesn't give you anything. And then it's more complicated on the bottom right because now it's just a menu of all these things, these fucking bullet points, and you have to go down and look at all these things. So when they did that change, they removed tier 2 so you couldn't see what the next progression was. And oh, I threw a fit. I did not make friends. I was like, you have to return this. It's impossible. Like, why would you remove that? You can't even see what the next upgrade is. It's removing pertinent information for players. And so now it's actually a toggle in the UI. It's off by default. You have to go in and enable that. And still, when you cursor over the rank 1 upgrade, you can't even like cursor over the rank 2 to see what it's going to do. So it's like, it's just the changes that abstraction has made is removing a lot of critical key information from certain areas and cluttering other areas in the interest of making it more user-friendly. So there's my small rant about these things, but holy shit.
I love that.
That was, bro, do that more. That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, I don't want to steal the show, but I can talk about everything about Gigantic like that.
That's okay.
Kill feed off by default.
I know, bro.
That's
Like,
absurd.
what is that?
Why? It's very important information.
And then there were 2 keys bound to the same button. That was something.
Which ones?
Oh God,
I must
was it
miss that.
sprint and like dodge?
Oh,
Same button.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
And,
the
like,
really sensitive dodge. Yeah.
I hate that in general, but still, like, I don't know, something about having to go into the UI to turn on the freaking kill feed, the thing I care most about. Oh, that person picked up an orb. Great. Sometimes I'm not looking up there. I'm looking there. Who died? Okay, cool. Like, I don't know. In a game where the goal is to kill players and get things, I just don't, does not compute in my brain. So, okay, I'll stop about that. But anyway, the
Yeah.
icons of the characters, I hate them.
Why would they do that?
Why
there
would
was
they
a lot of
change that?
personality and color variance to each of the hero icons, right? There's their skill icons. And then now they've just homogenized them and they're all
Yeah.
like a flat two-tone palette, maybe three because there's white and or maybe four because black is in there or whatever.
I'm
But
upset.
it's yeah, they all look homogenized now. It's so difficult to tell which button you're clicking. And it's just like, why make that change? So, somebody, I mean, you have to go through a development cycle to do these things. Somebody had to identify that as being a problem. And then, like, a producer's like, yes, let's assign someone's work hours to change this thing that didn't need to be changed. And then they go through a process and then they go through all the checks, and the artists are like, yes, that looks better. That looks improved. That was time well spent. You know, your salary is being paid to do this thing that is just having no tangible effect on the game other than making it worse. It's not having a positive tangible effect. It's having a negative effect. So like there's just like a lot of things like that that are so awful. But you know, I'm shitting all over it. However, they did add hard numbers for your health and stamina
I'm so
and
happy about
shield. So
that.
that's
That is
really
true.
good. But then isn't that like a juxtaposition where they're adding all these extra numbers that people want, but they're removing a bunch of shit that was already there that is important that people still want. And so I don't know, it's just so whack. This whole update, you know, Rampage Edition, it's just like one step forward and two steps back in a lot of regards.
I agree. In like in some ways I'm like yes, 100%. There's well, we were meant to have. I was gonna have two people who from the live gigantic scene, which is you guys, and I was gonna have another member in here called Laundromat. He's from private server, so I was gonna have him come in, but he got caught up. He has not stopped talking about the Margrave redesign because he's a Margrave man and he hates it so much.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
do you want to
Why?
say anything about that, Failco? Because
I mean,
I'm gonna go off.
okay, all I can say is that knowing the artist in person, they are not super happy about it. I'm not super happy about it. And why'd they put poop on Griselma's head? Like, why? Like, what? Okay, first of all, saying you can improve the designs that are already there it's really egotistical in my opinion. Changing things that don't need to be changed, that's kind of goes along with exactly what SoFech just said. It's like, why would you even do that in general? So I'm very upset about it. It's like taking somebody else's work and being like, you know what? Now we don't want this. Let me make it worse. Okay, great. Okay, that looks good. Okay, enjoy that, Motiga. All right, I'm sorry. I'm mad.
No, it's okay. And one other thing I wanted to touch on is something I was talking about with a few people from the private server is the credits that just say special thanks to Motiga. Like I'm pretty sure I saw on Reddit SoFech said something about that. Um that is something that like I'm not an artistic person or anything like that, but I feel like that annoys me a little bit more than everything else just because you know, I've heard the stories about Mutiga coming in without getting paid for a few days just to work on the game because of how dedicated they are. I've seen the community videos. I've seen the just playing the game. I've seen the product they've made, and you can tell how much they cared about it and all the things they had to work through. And just to have it say special thanks just really annoys me and puts me in a bad mood for reading it.
Yeah, I think I've made it very clear how I feel about that, and I'm sure Motiga has as well. But it's kind of like a slap in the face. It's awful. I kind of understand why they did that. They feel like it's theirs now. It's like they're taking this thing and they're trying to make it their own, and that's why they're doing a lot of these changes. But it just sucks. It feels very disrespectful to disregard all of the people who had built this foundation. And like still 90% of the stuff that's in this game is done by Motiga. And so just putting it on one little special thanks slide, that sucks. And also like all the people who were fired by Gearbox last year aren't listed in there. You know, like
Who could
I
that
use this
be?
example. Yeah, who could possibly have worked on this game? But like also a lot of people, it's not just people who were like finance or something, you know, it's people who were very dedicated and passionate about the game previously, like people who had worked on the game the first time around and who had been involved in a lot of different marketing aspects and production aspects of the game, you know, like normal gigantic, and then who also were working on Rampage Edition. So it just sucks. it's a bad situation, and it's really disrespectful. And I wish they wouldn't have done that, because all they had to do was add their own names in front instead of removing everybody else's name.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it was on page like 11, I think, of the credits. I can't remember exactly, but it was all the way down there, all the way back there in like the smallest font ever as well. And I don't know. I've I really personally I want to petition to put the credits in there, because it is not fair to just say you made this game when you didn't make the whole game or the characters or things like that. So I actually asked like Finney, I was like, give me all the people's names. I'm gonna like make this page. Also not on a black background in the void of like hell. Like what the fuck is that? So I'm gonna do it. I'm putting SoFech's name on there because god damn it, does he deserve some credit? And we're gonna like see if that can actually get in the game, because like, you know, in the dev diary we have like the CEO of Motika, Chris Chung, looks like he's like literally he's like kidnapped and they're like forcing him to talk. Like I don't know. I think like it's awesome to be excited about working on such a cool game, but like you got to acknowledge the building blocks of why it's so good. So I'm upset. And I mean, thank God it at least has credits. I mean, it could be worse, right?
I mean, yeah, that like
Not much worse.
well, you know, it's like we've talked a lot about the negative aspects, but at the end of the day, we're all happy it's coming back. It's getting a chance that a lot of games don't get. So I think I want to talk about a lot of the things that we do like about what we've seen of Rampage Edition so far. And one of the first things I wanted to talk about is Rush. I feel like as a game mode for me, I don't like it. But for the game, I think it's great just because Gigantic, as I said, is a hard game. It's difficult to get into, and starting off with Clash is so confusing. So having a mode where it's just go in and kill stuff and you can just turn your brain off, and as well with like Clash is, especially in private servers where people are like above average in matches, Clash matches can go on for 45 minutes of just constant back and forth because of how tight it gets.
Yeah, and there's a lot of waiting and
Mm-hmm.
really putting the right things down, or really knowing how to like split your team up, things that require communication and like a lot of muscle memory, really being like, okay, we go here. Okay, this is how we counter. But I don't know. I feel like SoFech has a lot of opinions about Rush as well. So you go first. I'll go after you.
Okay, sure. And again, if I start getting rambly or something, just stop me. It's okay. Or if you want to, interject and talk about one of the points that I bring up, that's fine. But yeah, so in development, we know that there was a game mode called Brawl, and even in that video, the developer diary video that Chris Chung is in, Brawl was a very different objective and a different purpose than what Rush is. So Rush did not evolve from Brawl. Rush is just a completely separate game mode with a lot of different ideas. I mean, it's still gigantic. It still has the same heroes. It still like utilizes the same maps and stuff. But Brawl actually had pretty different maps, and so maybe we'll get time to touch on that later. But during the development of Rush, I feel like Rush just doesn't achieve any of the goals that it set out to, and it's advertised as being something that is more user friendly. It's better for new players. You're forced to play it for 10 levels, which it used to be like 30 levels or something. It was insane, And so that's also a dial that they can turn. So I think that the game where it removes some complexity, it adds a lot more complexity as well. Because having a full hero kit just means that your spells are interacting in ways that you're not familiar with. And so when you look at your builds, like your loadouts, there's only two of them, sure, and you can custom make, but it's just this whole laundry list of things that you either care about enough to spend a lot of time reading, or you don't, and then you just get in, and then you have all these interactions that you're not understanding why those things are happening. And I think that that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier that Gigantic just doesn't do a good job of is, leading the horse to water. It just doesn't show you where those things are. And so if it did that, then Rush wouldn't even be necessary, in my opinion. I like that it's a game mode that's separate from Clash. I think it's important to have variety in game modes. But Having fixed creature spawns doesn't teach a new player how to summon creatures. It doesn't teach what any of those other creatures do. It's just like one bloomer, and the bloomer just dies, and then it gets resummoned, and so it doesn't teach you any of those things. I personally hate that you have to stand still and capture power. I've talked with people and I've seen people in my stream and in chats and discords and stuff who actually like that. So cool, that's mission accomplished. But I think it's awful to require one player to stand still for 4 seconds, not having fun, not pressing their buttons, not being able to interact, hoping and praying to Jesus that their teammate is going to protect them, that they're going to shield them, that they're not going to get hit by CC. Then you get hit with a mortar and then you get knocked away. So, okay, now all that 4 seconds that I just spent there is wasted. Now I have to go and do that again. Players being able to switch heroes just means that you not only have to learn your hero and the 4 heroes that are on your team and the 5 heroes that are on the enemy team. Now somebody is going to switch. So now there's a fucking frog that's licking you, and then the frog is gone, and now there's a snowman throwing balls at you. And then it's just like there's so many different layers that are being stacked on top of itself. And I think that's really frustrating. And then like you don't get a chance for yourself to be able to learn what your character is doing because you don't have any agency over your upgrades. It's just a max level character. You can't counterpick, which is really important in Gigantic, especially in Rush where you need to have some kind of CC. So if you make a build that isn't good, you can't go back and change it. There's just so many different things like that that really suck about Rush. The maps also are not very well designed, and there's just Amani's so good on those maps. There's the sight lines are insane, which means that characters like T-Mat are just more oppressive than she already is. Like obviously best character. I mean, she just never got a balance pass. She released super strong, and then I don't think Abstraction has done any balancing to the characters at all. But also like trying to simplify the game through Rush just changes the core identity of the game. And so I worry if new players are coming in and playing Rush, they're going to expect Clash to be like that. But Clash has all these other elements that make it so much more fun. It isn't like Death Ball-y. And also, it just like Rush clutters the UI more because there's just more shit that's popping up on the screen. Every 30 seconds, you have to go and capture something. And also, like when after a wound, those aren't communicated well either. It's just like, oh, there's a guardian here, and the arenas are really small. And if you run into the wrong side of the map, then you're just dead. And like after a wound, there's just nothing for you to do. There's no objectives. So, if you wipe the enemy team, most of the time, there's nothing for you to do either. You just kind of sit around twiddling your thumbs. It's hard to take the creatures, or maybe you took a creature already and you want a team fight. And it's just like the pacing of it is so whack. I just think there's a lot of problems with that game mode, particularly, going all the way back around. I don't think it communicates the game well to new players, and I don't think it's a good introductory experience, which is what that game mode is designed to do.
Wow, that was a lot. That was like pretty much everything.
And a lot of it was actually very, very cohesive. Like that, a lot of that makes sense as well. Like it is advertised as the simpler game, but when you break it down, there's like a lot of stuff in it that does it. Like I've seen people in Discord servers talking about Clash having everyone start at level 10 because it makes the game more fun. I completely disagree with that. I don't like the starting at level 10. Also, I don't like the hero switching at all. I don't like the idea. Like, I get it's like the new player experience. You can switch and you can learn different characters, but it doesn't give you that much. Rush matches can be so short as well. Like it doesn't give you it feels really snowbally, but I can sort of get like that's sort of a thing with Gigantic game modes in general. I think so, like it's just if one team knows a rotation more than the other, they can sort of carry the whole thing. But again, like that's skill expression, that's fine. But with regards to like the maps as well, I think a lot of the maps are either don't have enough clutter on them or have way too much. Like Reef, for example, the 2 pillars in the middle, I do not like that at all. I feel like it just Reef is like either Reef is designed like I love Reef's design. It has like even the Clash version of it doesn't even like it just gets rid of a wall that opens up a lot of variation in the way you can play, but adding those 2 pillars in the middle makes it so collecting D is just if you're not collecting D, it makes it so much more of a hassle to get to D, and then the Guardians are so close for in Rush. There's a lot of issues with that game mode as well, and as you said with the creature summons and regarding to by collecting power, having to stand still. There were a few times during, I think I have a clip somewhere, I might try and pop it up, but there was a clip where I tried to summon, like, I tried to collect power like 4 times in a row, just constantly being interrupted. Like, and that's boring, just having to sit there. Because I feel like it's more rewarding in Clash, because with Clash, there's a lot of thought that goes into it, because, you know, you can rotate, you can fake a rotate, and then you can come back and get it, and it feels awesome to trick them. But with Rush, it's like, I have to collect this now. I'm just going to hold this button down, which it's not overly engaging, I feel. Um and as well with like pre-made builds, some of these builds are awful. Like some of them are like bad, but like some of
Hey, don't make fun of
Margrave's,
that's all I did. Okay, when I played
I watched your stream, I was like, does she know?
it was hilarious. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay. Like some of the Margrave ones are awful. Like Matt was complaining about them. He was like, bro, like if I see any new player running these, I'm reporting them. Like but do you have
And
any
so,
thoughts?
real quick on the topic of player builds, I think that that is a really challenging topic because one, the preset builds from abstraction are designed to be able to have two different themes to them. And so they don't exactly lean into like left path, right path for upgrades, but they're often like, here's a damage one, here's a defense one, or something like that, right? So, or like, here's a long range one, here's a short range one. And so they try to show the hero diversity, but also because these are designed for Rush, they have to have some kind of CC. And so a lot of the builds that don't have CC or like don't have the right kind of CC feel like they're just trash. And also they don't have good combos because it's just hard to be able to create an effective identity for these things because you want the characters, you want each of the builds to feel different. And it's like, how do you balance having each of these builds feel different and having the identity for the character and having them still have the CC for Rush, but not, you know, and still getting like the best DPS and things in there. So I think that was a really big challenge for abstraction, and I don't think there's a way that you can win that argument. It's just there's no perfect build that you can get. I'm sure there's a best build that would work well in this kind of game mode, but then still it's not like you can make another build that's equally as powerful. So then there's just like one good build, and then I think there's a lot of challenges that come around with that, and so it sucks. But yeah, I mean, I think that the builds are a good jumping off point. I actually don't think that most of them are that big of a problem. Plus, because of the way Rush is a new player even going to know that they're using a bad build or not?
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
And you know what? Like, the one thing I found really interesting about Rush was that, like, it felt like it was really fun for tank players and supports this time. It was like, oh my God, supports felt so strong. You could do so much. You have interrupts and all kinds of CC. And like a character like Taito, I felt like I was running away half the time, couldn't interrupt anything, was just struggling. Where like characters who had a lot of control and like were in your face, could tank and death ball, they felt really good. And I mean, you know, I agree that this is like really difficult to make a mode where you're level 10 in gigantic and you're like, let's make an Overwatch mode, it'll be great. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to throw at people right away, because level 10 in gigantic is way different than like just playing an Overwatch character, right? Like you have like these insane things you can do. I'll be honest with you, the whole playtest, I didn't look at a single ability or build, nothing. I just played, and it was complete muscle memory. So I couldn't tell you what the hell the changes were at all. Did it feel different? Yes. Do I know why? No. Other than CC, there's a ton of it. And I don't want to be the person who gets stuck in the middle of every team fight. So, yay, more fights all the time. No rest. That's exciting. Except for gathering the orb, like you said. Yeah, that was the one thing where you're like sitting there if everybody's on the other side of the map, which happened a few times to me. Then it's kind of sad. But you know what? How is that super different though than rotating as an assassin and taking a creature all alone by yourself? I guess you are fighting a creature, but you know, there's like some similarities that I enjoyed, but then there's others where it does feel kind of weird, where the whole mode is like kill each other now, and then it's like you're over here like, yep, I'm alone.
I feel like the
I'd like to
balance. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, just real quick, I'd like to comment on a couple of the points that Failco made. Like the one about Overwatch, you feel that. It feels like Rush was designed to be an Overwatch style game,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just you have these complete characters, you just run it down in mid, there's a little objective that you do something and you fight on, and it just cycles through. And then the Guardians are the thing that makes it gigantic. But definitely it feels like this was a play to try to capture that Overwatch audience. Also, I don't know if Clash talents are even working in Rush. Like I've seen conflicting reports of some Clash talents working, some not. Who knows if they're even designed to work? I mean, they're there. You can click on it and see which one's selected. So I don't know what's going on with that. I feel like there's a lot of oversight in that regard, and like who knows what the design intent for that is, because again, it's not communicated. And so I feel like there's a lot of elements like that. It's like, is this intended? Is it not? What's the purpose of this? So there's a lot of things like that that Rampage Edition suffers from, I think. And also like Clash talents are sort of the way that some characters would come back in the game,
Mm-hmm.
because when you hit Clash, you get this huge power spike. And so like some heroes really relied on their Clash talents, especially like going into Clash. And you know, your level 5 is another power boost because you get that talent. And so it's just kind of missing that. So yeah, it's just a weird, confusing situation.
I mean, yeah, like I feel like it's hard to like judge like on the topic of like the balance of the game and like Clash talents. I think it's hard to judge the balance right now just because we've only played Clash. It's a complete different way of playing. Um, Obviously you'll have your characters that are top notch, so like Wu, T-Mat, Sven is always going to be S tier, Imani, you know, you have all those, but then other characters who maybe weren't as strong or stronger now, like Paco is way better in Rush and stuff like that. So and on the topic of that, even like balance, I feel like is still an issue in Gigantic after all these years. Like some characters are awful. Like I watched the like an interview SoFech did a while ago talking about how Zandora was his least favorite character just because of how long he worked on the video, and like Zandora I think is still one of, if not the worst character in the game, which they still haven't fixed. And then certain upgrades like Long Tongue on Wu still exists. Like there is no reason why the one of the most broken abilities in the game should allow you to hit people from farther away, and like Imani can still hit people from unlimited range across the map and deal 250 damage a shot, and Sven can do everything the other supports can do on 2 cooldowns. Like, so I want to know, Sophie, do you have any input on like, did you discuss balance with them at all, or was there just we're doing it our way?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting topic. I've heard in many places that balance is not a destination, it's a journey. You can never really have a fully balanced game, especially when you're adding
Mm-hmm.
content to it. And also with the diversity in hero kits and upgrades and stuff, it's just like unrealistic to expect that everything is balanced. Also, it's a 5v5 game. So a character that's bad solo may be incredible in a team. So there's like a lot of different elements that you need to think about in that regard. But the private server players are on an old build, and as far as I can tell, nothing has changed in Rampage Edition from the last update, like official update. So it's been pretty consistent all the way through, and I don't think that there were any balance changes made to any of the current heroes. Now, like who knows what Roland and Kajir are going to be like. I mean, those characters never officially released anyway, so whatever their balance is at when they launch is kind of their baseline. But
Too
I think
strong,
that,
probably.
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
think they're going to be really busted. I think both those characters are just going to be overtuned. But like that's why T-Mat was so strong in this last build, is because she just never got a balance pass. But also I think Rush exacerbates some of those problems too, because T-Mat gets to do what she wants to do. Same with Amani, same with Wu. You know, they kind of get to do their role really effectively in Rush. But also heroes like Granny, she just gets to go fucking buck wild in that. She just gets to post up, and I do think that there's counters to it, and people haven't really discovered that, because it's cool that you can switch heroes mid-match, right? You can just run back. You don't even have to die. You can, which is another thing I don't know if people notice, but you can hop back onto your airship.
Mm-hmm.
There's a launch pad to
Hmm.
get you back there. So yeah, you can just go switch heroes and find something that counters a lot of the hard things in Rush. And certainly that's not a thing that you can do in Clash, but Clash has the upgrades that you can do, which encourage you to try to find counters that way. But balance is just never going to be perfect. And I don't think that there's any intent from abstraction to actually balance what is currently in the game. And that takes a long time too, and that takes a lot of updates. And it just doesn't seem like that's the purpose of this re-release. I don't think balance is even really a consideration. I think it's just get the old experience out the door and add on a few extra things.
That worries me because T-Mat, right, so I don't know if you know this, I'm assuming SoFech probably does, but T-Mat's bugged right now. So the crack armor on LMB is only meant to apply to burning targets, but it applies on every
always applies.
LMB to land. That
Oh,
is
no.
that is so strong. On top of her being like a mini Imani sniper with flight and seeking missiles, like there's so many things that I could say, like from playing with like improvisers with like the best of the best players. They have the they have the knowledge that they're like, this is too strong, this is weak, like, so a lot of that stuff I feel like it worries me that that hasn't been changed. And as you said, like Griselma, for example, Griselma I think needs a full rework because I think she's a coin flip character. And what I mean is, like, at least in Clash, in Rush I didn't see too many, but in Clash, she's either controlling the entire game or she does fuck all. Like it's either or. And I feel like a lot of the strong characters in Gigantic are just really oppressive. Like Imani and Wooch completely changed the way you have to position, you have to play, what upgrade you take, just because of how like strong they are. And I'm worried that when the game re-releases, at the top of there being completely new players, people who are good at the game will take advantage of that, like just shit on new players, and that'll weaken the retention that we have of like onboarding of new players and the accessibility.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that for any game though, right? Like,
Yeah.
I saw it real hard in Spellbreak. People who had been beta testing that game for years, came in, destroyed a lot of people who just started. And it's never fun to lose and be confused. Oh, what the hell? Oh, they sniped me across the map. Cool. So it's, my opinion on that is that as the people, as the pros we all are now, the vets, we have to try really hard to at least support the community the way we can, so any knowledge videos, which I've seen tons of already, that's super useful. Maybe we need to go back to old Gigantic days where Motiga actually had community members try and teach new players. So I think honestly it's like it's what we make of it. If we're just going in to shit on new people, that's, they're gonna leave probably. But if we're going in there trying to be like a really inclusive environment and be like, hey, we're doing like a community like learning session with like people have been playing the game for a while, we do stuff like that, maybe we'll see people stick around. Because yeah, no one wants just to shit on new players either, right? That's not fun. I mean, it kind of is,
At
but
the
like
start it gets fun, but then you're like,
they're new. Yeah, then they leave and you're like, oh great, like I just, so let's try not to do that. Let's be good and teach people. Yeah.
you will always get those trip players who are just farming the same player over and over in every game.
Don't call me out, okay?
I love that attitude though, Failco. That's a good perspective to have, and I hope more people will adopt that attitude.
It's our second chance, we gotta do what we can, and we can at least say we tried if it doesn't work out, right? So
Yeah. I mean, if we have a moment to talk about that, I think I'll pose a question to both of you and to everybody watching this. Like, whose responsibility is that? Is that up to the developers to protect the new players, or is that up to the players to, not smash on the newbies?
I mean, I have a huge opinion on this.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Because okay, so I honestly think it's the community's like job too. Like there's gonna be, ranked, and that's great. If you want to like go hard in ranked, but like normal modes, like, you're gonna play to win, obviously. But like still there's always going to be, you know, people who don't like the game because it's hard or they're losing. So it's got to be on the community, because I know, like, we don't have Motiga here anymore. They helped make that happen, but now it's really on the community. So let's go, everybody. Get your teaching pants on and get ready. Let's start teaching these people, and don't make them cry, okay?
For me, I think it's sort of like a combination of both, because it's up to the developers to make stuff clear on what stuff does and how to play the game, and give you all the tools you can have to apply. It's up to the players and the community to like give help to those who need it, who don't know, to put videos up on how to use certain stuff, what certain things do. Also up to the players themselves, who, if they want to play the game, just try your best to get better. You know, you're not gonna get better by not playing. You know, you learn more from losing than you do from winning. So I think it's more up to that. So I also wanted to know, with regards to all like the new stuff regarding heroes maps, like what do you guys think of like the new maps? Because I believe Sky City was a Motiga made map. I'm not sure about Picaro's Bay, but I know in the build we play in private server, there's a really early version of like an untextured Sky City. So if you want to talk to us about that, SoFech.
Sure. Sky City has changed a lot. There were a lot of concept art for Sky City, and I don't think Abstraction took any of it. I handed it over, but it looks very different than what the concept art was. It still, yeah, it still kind of has a similar theme where like the outside of the map has these like two posts, and then there's like a street that runs through, and there's some cars and stuff, and then there's like a weird center point that became like a factory thing with an elevator, and then the outside of the map, wait, the inside of the map or whatever, the other side of the map has some like airships over there, and there's like gardens and stuff. So a lot of like the position of things is pretty similar, but Abstraction changed the map enough that I think it's very different than what Motiga had envisioned for it. I don't I didn't really like that map before, and I don't think this was the right choice in polishing a map. I think that it was it's just like the flow of the map is kind of whack. The outside has 2 points that are really close together, and that's not fun. And then there's like one point in the middle that has an elevator, and there's like sniper roosts that are easy to get up to, and so it's just like hell for melee. The whole thing is hell for melee. And then when it switches over, it goes to the opposite side. It's a similar case where there's just like these super long hallways where range can just snipe down. I mean, maybe it's changed, and maybe we'll see that there's some different things from when I had last tested it. And like nobody has had a chance to actually get into a real match on those maps yet. So, you know, it's just kind of my conjecture. But I think that like stylistically, the way that the map is laid out is just not conducive to a fun game mode. The other side of that coin is that I don't like the way it looks. I think Jolt was talking about how dark it is, and I agree. Through a lot of the map's development, I was providing feedback that I think that both of the sides look too similar. And so something really important in a PvP game is being able to convey which side of the map you're on without having to look at a mini map, or, you know, without having arrows or things. And so Motiga did that through having different themed areas. Like a lot of the old points used to be called things like on Mistforge, there's bell and chime. And so it's really easy, like that's a simple distinction where you can just look at this thing. Is it a bell or is it a chime? Okay, I know which side of the map I'm on. And I don't think that's really conveyed in these two new maps at all. And I see in the screenshots that there's colors. There's like a purple side and a teal side. And that's cool, but it's weird that it doesn't really mesh with the colors of anything else. They just kind of seem arbitrary. It doesn't really match the colors of the Guardians. I mean, purple does, but teal doesn't. It doesn't match the colors of the UI anymore because they removed the teal from it. So like, I don't know. It's just weird. And also those are like, purple's a really dark color. And so it's just, I think that we'll see, but I don't really like the way that that map flows. Also, the other one, whatever Bay, I forget the name of
Picaro's.
it. Picard. Yeah, I don't think that's a very great name for it. And we went back and forth on names, and we weren't able to settle on anything. Like I had pitched some bad ideas, and whatever. It's fine. We'll remember it eventually. But yeah, that was actually based on what was called Mod City, which you may have seen some of. in like private servers, or maybe I showed it on old streams or something, or maybe you can find it out there on some of the older builds. But it used a lot of the old, like what I think are raid assets from the first version of
Yeah,
Gigantic.
yeah, I heard
Before it
of
was
that.
Gigantic, it was called Raid. Yeah, so they look very old and ramshackled, and that's kind of the style to it, but also it doesn't have the quality and the polish. And then you just have these like shitty old textures and buildings and models, and then they start stacking new things on top of it. And that map I remember being pretty fun. It has this verticality to it, and like they mention in the product description, where it's got a lot of verticality. But that map has a very glaring weakness in that it is imbalanced, in that there's a ship right on the fucking side, and that's critical to pre-clash on that map. But it has like a mast on one side and it has like another thing on the other side. So there's an imbalance. So you actually have different angles on each side. So one side is going to have a distinct advantage on that map. And that's just so weird that they would do that. And I told them about that many times, and they didn't seem to care. I think they like the aesthetic more than they like the competitive nature of it. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think that both of these maps just look half baked. They feel kind of shitty to play. And I mean, if you know, we've played Rush, and it's kind of the same thing there, where it just feels like there's just things that are out of place. It's like they just like throw a bunch of assets here, you know, put a pillar here for no reason. Let's try to encourage fights here. It just feels like they had an idea of what Gigantic was trying to do, but they didn't understand how to execute on it.
Yeah, that feels like kind of like echoes throughout the entire thing, honestly. I've
I
only
know
seen
I'm being
pictures of the map, so you know a lot. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, well, you can hop into it, right? They left the I mean, if you still have the old build from the last playtest, it's pretty available knowledge. You can just go to the official Gigantic Discord server, and Flim is teaching people how to hop in and check those maps out. So,
Yes,
you know,
I
an
will do
official mod
that.
is teaching these things, and so yeah, you can definitely check those out right now. But yeah, you know, I am being pretty negative about this stuff, but I really don't mean for it to come across that way. That's just it's just an unfortunate circumstance. I mean, it sucks that these things aren't up to the standard of quality that I want them to be, but no doubt we wouldn't be able to even play this without abstraction. And it's cool that they're adding new content and adding all these different things that we can check out and interact with, and like new features and stuff. So it's not the same game that we had before. There's more stuff for us to have fun with.
One thing I'll say about like Picaros, and you said about having each side be really easy to tell where you are. That is so important, especially for Clash, I feel, just because the maps are bigger. Especially with Sanctums, which I think arguably is the worst map. Not aesthetically, it looks amazing. It's my favorite looking map, but it's just so annoying to play because it's on pre-class, it's ranged heaven. Like if you have an Amani, you can just control C. It like if you have D point, you have to do like 5 times as much of the work if you unless you have C point. And then when it comes to Clash, C point is just you win the game. You have a direct sight of everything. You can if you have C and you can like hold your team together, the enemy team just can't win. Picaro's, I think, has a similar issue with high ground because there's the base level of the map and then there's ramps everywhere. There's ramps that take you up high, and that's why I think you were talking about the pirate ship being imbalanced with the masts. Another reason I think that's imbalanced is because on the ship there's 2 direct ways to get up to the high ground. If you're on the high ground, you can directly hit all the enemy points on the map, and they can't touch you. So that's another thing I have with balance issues, that I don't think that map is very competitively viable. Um, Arguably Sanctums isn't either, just because it's so hard to play. Like I suppose with like low elo lobbies, I don't think it'll be as bad, just because they don't like both when both teams aren't thinking, it's fine. They'll just run into each other. It's fun. But whenever you have like one competent player on a team, it can be so much more annoying just getting steamrolled the whole time. Um, but as well, you said about the design of Sky City. I should probably call it by its actual name. Heaven's Ward and Picaro's Bay. I don't think their art styles are they don't look like something Motiga would have put in. And that's really obvious when you look at the detail they have. Because on Sky City, I've seen there's like moving fans and there's stuff flying about. That is like Motiga's art style in all the maps is simplicity. I've noticed there's detail, but it's not overly cluttered or anything. With what Abstraction have done, I've seen, I think there's too much detail. There's too much stuff on the screen. And I think it just makes the game harder to read than it already is. And I don't like that just because I want this game to do well. And new players don't like, they need to learn enough on their own. I don't want them being cluttered with all this new stuff. So, another thing I wanted to talk about was what you guys, we've been talking a lot about negativity here, like the stuff we don't like. It's all coming from a place of love, but there's a lot of stuff that there are issues with. But I want to know, what is your like, what are the three things you want to come to Gigantic further down the line if they propose we get new features other than the ones they've listed already?
Three things.
Oh,
I
I'm not
think,
prepared.
yeah, I'm not prepared either. The first thing that came to my mind was more frontliners. I think we need more tanks in the game. Like, it's important in Rush, but it's even more important in Clash. And there's only two really. I mean, Paco, as far as I understand, isn't super viable as a tank. He's more like a support or like a brawler,
Mm-hmm.
but he can't tank in the way that like Rutger can or like Margrave especially. And also, I guess more supports because you have Sven who is so dominant, and I guess there are a lot of ways to counteract healing, but still you kind of have to prepare for that. So yeah, I just think there's already an insane amount of range characters, and there's already very prominent assassins, and like you can even play some of the brawlers as assassins, and you can play some of the assassins as brawlers. So I think that the damage roles are taken care of. I think the support roles need to be expanded on.
Dang. I thought I could figure out something while you were talking, and I'm like, oh no. Can I just say that I wish there were more skins and more ways to master a character? Like, I would love like a whole tree of like, oh, here, like, I want to master Trip. Like, here's all the cool Trip things I can get. That's something I would absolutely freak out about. Uh, and I mean, obviously, I'd love a battle pass, but I mean, a game, I don't know if we're going to get that, but still, that would be really cool. And the third thing, this will never happen, but I would love it if there was more lore-based season stuff. Like, obviously, it would be amazing if we had like a storyline. And I mean, back in the day, I'm gonna date myself here. Back in the day, Motiga would like have a story time where we'd learn like a story about like a different character. We'd learned about Voden or House de Vedra, and it was so cool. Here, it's like you're never going to really learn anything. I don't know if you were reading some of the like rewards, but I get like nothing out of that. Like one of HK's is literally just dot 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 and that's it. There's no information there. It's like cool lore. So that's something I've always loved about the game. Like I want to know more how these characters know each other. I think the deepest we get is like Wu and Ramsey's relationship, but like I miss why these characters are fighting each other and like that's something I always like in games. So I don't know. I give me the lore.
Abstraction have like abandoned a lot of the lore, I think, in like the new skins, because as far as I know, the skins in Gigantic are tied to the lore in some way, as in they're meant to be the characters at a certain point. What the fuck is Ramsey's skin meant to be? What point was he looking
What
like that?
the like outlaw skin,
The
like
cowboy ones.
well, Ramsey went on a journey one day and he lived on a ranch. That's about it.
He went to the local Spirit Halloween and he picked out the last costume on the shelf.
I
It was bright yellow and blue. He had a party to go to that night. He's just choosing whatever's there. But
this is also a small thing, but I don't understand why it doesn't exist yet. While I was getting rewards for the characters and I would get like a skin, the skin didn't show up on the screen, just a picture that wasn't at all to do
Yeah,
with it.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
was like, okay, I understand that this icon's supposed to be a skin. Something like that would make sense in like a battle pass. It's like, here's the icons of the things that you're going to get. Cool. Here, why aren't I seeing my reward? It's actually like really strange. Okay,
Mhm.
whatever. This goes back to UX. But anyway, make that improvement, please. I need to see my reward.
You also don't get the weapon skin anymore. You just get the hero skin with it, which I feel like is also just another thing that is just annoying, and it sort of unmotivated me to like get as many coins as I could to buy a skin, because I'm like, I'm gonna have to buy the skin and then buy the weapon. One thing I do like though is they increased the mastery to get Eternal Light weapons to level 50, which I really really like. Is that the effects on those weapons are so cool. Like they're really really nice.
They're really cool. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, the Eternal weapons were supposed to have different tiers. So obviously they just never got made. But I mean, if you see older builds, there's a bunch of different types of them in different colors
Oh, that's
and
what
different
those
effects and
are.
things. Yeah,
Oh.
so they were supposed to be like implemented at certain like breakpoints. So like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. And you would unlock different types of weapons. But I mean, that's not the case anymore. But that
Ugh.
was the intent for those. That's why they were unlocked so relatively early.
They're
Oh,
still
like
in the
prestige and stuff. Like that
Yeah.
is. Oh man. Now I'm sad.
they're still in the build, so maybe one day we'll see that, which I hope. I want to move on to something that I feel like Failco might have a lot to say here about, having the past as being as an unprofessional professional gigantic pro player. Um, what do you guys think about it's the possibility of gigantic being competitively viable and having like potential esports?
Oh, okay. Well, I will say that back in the day, people were just like shoutcasting the game on their own and listening to it. It was actually really exciting and fun to watch. So, I mean, I'd love that, but it feels like if we want to make that happen, that's another thing I think that we have to prove that it can be viable, right? We have to like run tournaments as a community, show that yes, come on, let's make the abstraction or gearbox like fund some of these tournaments, like show them yes, look how many people are interested. So I think it could be, but if they're not making new content for it, that's where I'm wondering. I'm curious. I'm like, how does that make the game like more viable as like a competitive product? So that's where I'm questioning. But I think it's freaking fun to listen to people shoutcast
Mm-hmm.
games, and I'd love that. So please make it happen.
I love watching it at high level as well, because the amount of thought that goes into it, like it's like mechanical skill's a big part of it, but the macro required to pull stuff off effectively is watching like high level players play any game is great, but gigantic in specific, I love so much. Also, I really want to see if it's possible team specific skins. Like I want my Nimbus skin in game. That'd be
That
too
would be
amazing.
so cool. Oh my god. Man.
But that's the thing, like, I wonder, would they be like, if they see it has competitive viability, would they be willing to invest in an esport? Because for me, like Overwatch is esport. Like I hate to compare it to Overwatch because that's partially one of the reasons I think it failed. But like Overwatch, I feel like is a casual game at first, first and foremost, and they push competitive way too hard and push it to be an esport. Gigantic, I feel like it can be both. I just hope that if they are willing to go that far, they don't push it too quickly. Like I need it to happen naturally, if you know what I mean. But as well, like Guardian Arena existed, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we tried like as a community. I just feel like there were just, so many things against us. And by the time competitive could really even be a thing, it lost a lot of player base at that point. There were actually some people looking to fund teams back in the day. I remember there were a few people here and there who started branding and like supporting their team, scheduling scrims. It was exciting, but there was no like outside like thing that was going on. It was just us making it happen. So I am hoping that maybe with a bigger company with all this, new money, maybe they'll see, wow, a lot of people play this game. A lot of people are obsessed. Let's throw some tournaments at them, sponsored by us.
I love this
Make it
as well.
happen, SoFech. Come on.
Yeah, SoFech, come on,
I
you got
mean,
this.
I'm not part of the official team anymore, but I was certainly planning on doing that when I was still at Gearbox.
Oh,
But I'm
Sips.
also planning on doing that moving forward. But if I may, I think there are some important points to discuss about esports.
Mhm.
I think that the old version of the game didn't even have the tools to support that community. It had a custom mode with only 2 maps. It didn't even have all four, well, 3 when the game released, and then 4 when Wizard Woods came out. And it also didn't have spectator. So we were reliant on watching people's streams, and that sucked. But this new build seems like it's going to have, at least from the product description and what we've seen in people, breaking into the code, is that it has the full suite of custom matches and it has spectator. So who knows what that entails? We don't know if it has picks and bans or things like that, but at least it appears to have all of the maps, an easy way to get a party, 2 parties of 5 together to fight each other, and then a way to spectate those. So I think that that alone will help facilitate a competitive scene.
Yeah, because originally when we were trying to scrim back when it was like in full swing, we would just have to try to queue against the other team. Just queue. And sometimes it didn't work and you'd be against random people and you'd be like, I'm so sorry.
That's
And we
right.
have to kill them really quickly and like win and leave, get to our stupid scrim. So yeah, this is gonna be so much better, just overall.
That's the whole
Uh,
I
reason.
think
That's sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna rant. So
No, go
if you have
ahead.
something you want to say,
Take it
okay.
away.
So I think a competitive scene is really important for a game's health and development. I think that new players will learn a lot from a competitive scene. Competitive scene gets invested players to continue playing for a purpose. So even if they've unlocked everything, even if they've monetized or whatever, they still have a reason to keep playing, and that is because they have their friends that they're on a team with, and also because they have a goal of beating another team. So that generates a lot of extra content. It encourages them to stream, so the game has activity on Twitch and YouTube and other places. And so I think that competitive is super important for any game like this that has some kind of competitive element to it. However, I think that we may be over the hill for that. I think it might be too late. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of desire from the current developers to put any money into this, and I don't know why they would. It's just way too expensive, and there's also no money in esports organization. I think there's a lot of potential opportunities for monetization in esports from a marketing, from an advertising perspective, actually. But you see all these esports orgs who are saying like they're just holding L's. It's just a big loss for them. They have to pay a lot to their players. Like, how do they pot split? What if their team loses? They don't have any kind of infrastructure to be able to continue funding those things. The advertisers seem like they get a lot out of it, though. So, like, Blizzard coming in and dumping millions of dollars into the Overwatch scene, they're not really getting much from that. They're just losing. They're getting awareness, a little bit of marketing. But then the advertisers that come in are making a lot. But then the teams that are hosting those things are just taking fat L's. They can't sustain it. And you see that in Smite as well, where like Hi-Rez is really trying to create a competitive scene. And I think they've done a lot to that. And they have a lot of tools that they've established for that too. You can even like watch their streams and you get like coins or something that you can spend on skins and stuff in their game. So they have built up that infrastructure over the years. But you see also the type of time and effort that they have to put into that. They have to do interviews with their teams, and I think they actually own most of their teams too. They have management over those things. So it's just like it takes so much to get started that I don't know if this game would be able to do that, and I don't think there's a desire from the current devs to do that. But that is something that we as a grassroots community can create and facilitate. I mean, I play a lot of fighting games, and so there's this thing called a Discord fighter, which is like an old game and you can't find anybody to play with, but then you hop on the Discord server and there's like tons of people and you can find matches and you can play on like Fightcade and things like that. So I think that's probably more likely the future for Gigantic.
I honestly feel like I prefer community run. I feel like you have more freedom and you can sort of do what you want rather than being tied down by something like official. Um, but I was gonna say now is like Gigantic's release now. I feel like it's one of the most perfect times because all of its quote unquote competitors from when it was a live game are all sort of disappearing a little bit. I mean, Overwatch 2 has gone on the decline. Um, Paladins isn't as on the rise anymore. A lot of like Battleborn doesn't exist anymore. I would even say like Lawbreakers and stuff doesn't isn't a thing anymore. So this is like a prime time for the revive of Gigantic, and like I really want this game to like do well, and I feel if as a community, as so long as we like keep strong with the game, this game will do well. Um, a lot of one thing I have heard people talking about is the fact that people are saying the servers will have to go down because it's a buy to play. So once you bought it, you don't have to buy anything else. So a lot of people are worried about after people have bought the game, where are they going to make money from to like hold servers? So I don't know if you guys have anything to say about that, but
Yeah, that's a big concern, actually. Something that I pushed for really hard was finding a way to make it so that you can still use use like custom matches offline, so that you can somehow create teams and be able to play with people even if the servers go down. And I don't think that's the case now because you have to log in, right? So when you launch the game, there's a start button and it has to log you in. But I don't know what their plans are for that. I have no insight or insider information on anything about the future for the game. But I think, as we've mentioned before, it doesn't seem like they want this game to have legs. They want to be able to release it, get some sales, probably make back all the money from development, maybe make some more money, garner some interest in the series, and then like who knows what after that. But they've invested a lot of time and money into this, so I'm sure they want to recoup that investment. But because it's a package deal and because of the product description where it says they only have like two things coming in DLC, which is like some skins and then ranked mode, it doesn't seem like they intend to continue further down the line. So yeah, who knows?
well, one thing oh sorry, do you have something to say, Falco?
Oh, I was just gonna also say something similar. That I think that's a good summation, but it's yeah, like it is interesting, right? Like releasing this as something, even if it's who knows, maybe if it's standalone, but I mean, what if people really like it? I mean, there is a new engine out there. Who knows? Like maybe it'll be more than this. I don't know though, but it does sound like if they're releasing with a set amount of things, this might have like maybe it'll be a lead up to something. No one knows. I mean, I know literally nothing. So we can only guess.
Well, one thing I was gonna say is that I had the impression that they didn't put much money into this just because they had when they first received the game in its last retail state, it was fully functioning as far as I know. So I was under the impression whenever I first heard they were like potentially re-releasing it, I thought it was just going to be the retail version with nothing new. Like I was amazed to find that they had put all this new stuff into it.
Yeah, I think if you look at how much has changed, there's probably a substantial financial investment that went into getting those things done because those things just aren't done overnight. Yeah, they had the old game, but then they changed a lot of things. And so, like we were talking about before, the skill icons, like, you got to pay somebody to do that. And it takes a long time. And it has to go through multiple revisions, and there has to be multiple people to sign off on those things and agree and then implement those things. And that's a whole like teams of people that have to do something simple like that. So, just looking at all these changes, I would guess that it's probably pretty expensive to do this.
Yeah, and I mean they even made some new skins. So I mean, that does take a really long time. Concept, animation, texture, there's just so much. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm really curious how much Abstraction got paid. Probably a lot. Companies who are like, like them that like take IPs and like help put stuff out, they good money. So I am really curious too. But I just wish I knew more. But even if we did, we probably couldn't say it.
And that's fair enough. One of the last things I want to talk about is obviously we're all excited. Our favorite game is coming back. What are your guys' plans in regards to after the game releases? Are you guys planning on doing any? Are you guys planning on streaming, making content for it? Are you guys just playing it on your own? Are you guys hoping to do like competitive scrims or anything like that?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I definitely want to stream because I mean, it's just so much fun. I absolutely love the community and how it feels to be streaming, so I can't not do it. However, do not have as much time as I did when the game was first out, so it won't be as much, but all of those things you said are what I want to do. I think other than scrimming, I think I'm not good at the game and 5 years has not helped. And I will let the people who are the rising stars take the reins and I will be here and I would love to, I don't know, host tournaments or cool things in the future and like support those people. But yeah, I'm not gonna be working on my plays anytime soon. I don't know about you, so
I'm right there with you. I don't really have the time to invest in this anymore, you know. Back when I was just like young and single, I didn't have anything else better to do. So I just played Gigantic all the time and I learned a lot about the game through that. But yeah, now I have more responsibilities. But I think when it releases again, yeah, I'll probably be streaming and making YouTube content when I can, but I feel like everybody's going to be doing that.
Hmm.
You know, it's going to be especially what we saw during the preview event where it's just tons of streams and it's hard to like unfortunately Twitch doesn't really have a good way to get people recognized because if you're just like, 11th on the list, then you don't even get shown to most people, so that sucks. And with all the people who are going to be streaming this, I don't think there's really a way to grow, and I want to be able to utilize my platform and my knowledge to really like help the community and the game grow as much as I can. So I just want to run like weird tournaments and events and things. Maybe not competitive stuff, just more things that are like fun and silly and really lean into like that meme content. That's what I'm hoping to do.
5v5 support games, can't wait.
please, that
Exactly,
sounds
stuff like that.
amazing.
No, well, I can't wait, and fortunately we've ran out of time, and I don't have any more questions to ask you guys. But I want to say thanks for joining me and answering the questions, and I'm hoping that maybe someone at Distraction hears this and maybe listens a little bit. Just the community wants this game back so bad, and we love it so much, and this is a chance that most other games don't get. So hopefully we hopefully it succeeds and it has a good future ahead of it. But again, thank you both for talking with me, and I hope to see you in game.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks a lot.
So, Vest, do you want to send us off with the line?
All right. Well, for Failco and Northstar and myself, thanks everybody for coming. And until next time, we'll see you on the airship.
Yes.